people of YouTube, punk rock fairy princess here. I feel like every single video, like every single the past couple videos, I've said it's been a while, so we're just gonna forgo that and just assume that it's been a while. Besides, it's not a very good introduction to a video where you're just like, hi, hello, new viewer, and the viewer's like, huh, this person seems cool, wonder what they have to say about the world. And then I'm just like, I post on a very irregular schedule. It's not great PR for me. So it is time, the time has arrived for another Star Kid review. So last night I rewatched a Harry Potter sequel, which I know that I always say that I hate picking favorites of anything, like books, movies, musicals, everything, especially Star Kid musicals, because I'm just like, but they worked so hard on all of them, how do I choose? But I gotta say, a Harry Potter sequel is my favorite of the Harry Potter trilogy of shows, for reasons that I will talk about in this video. Yep. Okay. So, Harry Potter sequel, the book is by Nick and Matt Lang and Brian Holden, and the music and lyrics are by Darren Criss. The choreography is by James Tolbert. And the fight choreo is by Joe Moses. The scenic and costume designer was Corey Lubowich. The associate costume designers were Yonit Olshan and Jun Saito. And the show came out in 2010, and it is their third show and the second installment of the Harry Potter trilogy, as I like to call it. And I'm pretty sure that's not the actual title, but that's what I call it, the Harry Potter trilogy. The Harry Potter sequel takes place counterintuitively in Harry Potter's first year at Hogwarts because of time travel shenanigans. Oh, by the way, spoilers, I guess the show came out like fucking 10 years ago, but yeah, okay. The Death Eaters, angry that Voldemort has been defeated, decide to use a time turner to go back in time to Harry Potter's first year at Hogwarts and try to kill him. I don't know how to explain plots, especially not this plot, because this plot is complicated. Anyway, so let's start with the cast. So Darren Criss reprises his role as Harry Potter, and I gotta say, his character has much more depth in this show than it does in the first show, which I guess kind of makes sense because it's a second show. They can add more depth to characters. Yes, I'm going to talk about his character depth more in like the songs section because I feel like his character is much more revealed within the songs than with just like dialogue and shit, you know? Okay, yes. But what I'd like to highlight here is Darren's acting is... I have forgotten how to fucking speak. Oh, yes. Y'all better be washing your fucking hands and self-isolating if possible because coronavirus. Yes? Okay. Can you tell that I haven't spoken to a ton of people in the past couple days? No? Yeah? Okay. That's fine. I'm very social. What are you talking about? Yeah, so Darren's acting has very much improved from the first show to this show, which I guess kind of makes sense. The one moment that really stood out to me regarding Darren's acting is this bit right here.
And they're gonna give your friend Sirius back a big, fat, wet kiss goodbye for you. And then maybe he can say hi to your parents.
And just that little moment, I was just like, ooh, that's good. Also, I thrive off of angst and shit, so like, I was like, yes, angst, fear, sadness, feed me, okay? I need to talk to more people, okay? Joey Richter reprises his role as Ron Weasley, and while his character is clearly more like a comedic character, he does undergo character development in this show, and this character development goes really well, like flows really well into the Harry Potter musical character development, which I think is really cool. Bonnie Grusin reprises her character. Let's just assume that everyone reprises their characters because otherwise I'm going to say that every single time. Okay, Bonnie Grusin is Hermione Granger, and I mean, who doesn't like Hermione? I love her character development in this show because by a Harry Potter musical, she's reasonably confident in herself even though she knows she's not popular, and how she got to that point is shown in this show through her character development, which I think is really cool because it starts off with the coolest girl where she's like gosh, I wish I could show them that I'm cool. Yep, we're gonna talk more of that later. But then by the end, she has gotten so much self-confidence that, or she is on the way to gaining more self-confidence, so that when Draco tells her he likes her, this is her reaction.
I can't help but feel that I'm in danger of falling in love with Hermione. What?
Draco, I know that I have the lowest self-esteem out of anyone at Hogwarts, but I think that I can do better.
And I think this is a very, I don't know, mature reaction. It shows how far she's come from being insecure and you know, very Hermione-y at the beginning of the show, to being secure enough in herself that she doesn't need the validation from Draco liking her, and realizes that he's not a great fit for her. Sorry, Hermione shippers. I feel ya. I do. I read a lot of Hermione fanfiction as well. Yeah, okay. Lauren Lopez is Draco Malfoy, and I mean, Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter trilogy has always been and will always be an iconic character. And when I was starting to watch this, like when I was in the beginning of the show, I'm just like, Lauren really stepped up the game as Draco Malfoy in this show as opposed to Harry Potter musical. And then I realized she's not so much stepping up her game as Draco Malfoy in like the goofiness and silliness of the character, but she's more distinguishing between the first year version of Draco and the second year version of Draco, which becomes important later on because second year Draco travels back in time and is distinguishable from first year Draco, who is goofy and silly and needs his father's validation, whereas second year Draco has matured from that. And this is a lot of depth that I'm reading into a parody musical, but like, it's there. Jo Walker plays Dolores Umbridge, and I feel like there's definitely a conversation that can be had about possible transphobia in this whole thing. You know, the humor of a man playing a woman, the man in a dress. But I feel like I am not qualified enough to talk about that, so I'm not ignoring the topic. I just feel like, yeah, I'm not qualified to talk about it. Now that I've addressed the elephant in the room, let's talk about the character of Umbridge. What I think is really clever about this character is that while Umbridge is obviously funny, she's also genuinely scary, at least to me. Like, not like scary like, oh my gosh, scary, but like, you know, intimidating and creepy and scary in a way that, like, Umbridge, the character of Umbridge has always been kind of a representative of like bad authority figures, basically. Authority figures who will not do the best thing for the people they're in charge of. Which is why everyone despises Umbridge so much, because they remind you of like that terrible teacher you had or that terrible boss or whatever. Which is why people despise Umbridge more than Lord Voldemort, the main villain of the series. Which I've always found a really interesting phenomenon, but we're not going to get into that right now. But I don't know, Umbridge takes that, at least in this show, Umbridge takes that, but also adds in the threat of actual physical harm, because in the books there's not, I mean, there is with the I must not tell lies thing, but it's not as prevalent as it is in this musical, which I think is really interesting, because simultaneously we laugh at Umbridge, but we're also kind of scared of her. And there's these two moments that I think are really interesting with that.
I'm not afraid of you. You're a teacher. You can't hurt me. Do your worst. Oh, I will.
Joe Moses plays Severus Snape, who also has more depth in this show. Obviously, Severus Snape is a character almost exclusively there for comedy, as are most characters in this show, but yeah. This show makes Severus Snape more likable than either the books or the movies, like the official books or movies, did. Which is impressive, because it's a parody musical. They could have made Snape like the most unlikable but like funny character, but they made me sympathize with him, and I never sympathized with Snape in the books or the movies. So that's, I'm gonna talk more about this with the Guys Like Potter song. We have Brian Holden as Remus Lupin, which I think is just great casting. I love the character of Remus Lupin in this show, and I know it's like super like entirely different than the characters in the books, but like, let's be honest, most of the characters in this musical are very different from the ones in the books. I mean, in the movies he's responsible, but he's not like entirely by the book. I mean, he plays like he's like the fun teacher, you know, and I feel like a Harry Potter sequel just kind of exaggerates him as the fun teacher a little bit. Also, his and Snape's rivalry is fucking hilarious, and I love how childish it is, kind of making fun of how much they didn't like each other in the books, because it's just like, this is literally just like a rivalry from school that they as adults are still doing, and I love that a lot. Tyler Brunsman plays Lucius Malfoy, which, so much casting in this musical is just so iconic, and I can't tell if it's just my thinking this is genius casting is because it was genius casting, or because I just know these characters as these actors as these characters so much now that's just like, of course, who else could play that part? And Lucius dancing fits so well into his character that it's simultaneously hilarious and freaking genius. Lucius is this elitist prick, like that's his thing, and him being dramatic as shit and dancing all the time, like ballet dancing all the time, it fits so well into his character while also being really funny, and I love it a lot. Yep, okay. Jim Pavlo plays Gregory Goyle as well as Friends, the Centaur, or the Centaur as half the characters in FPS say, but like, okay. Jim just adds an iconicness to every character he plays, and I don't know what it is about them, but like, yes. Just amazing. Jamie Lynn Beatty plays Rita Skeeter, which is, I know I've said a lot of this is really good casting, but that is fucking good casting. I mean, who could play Rita Skeeter better than Jamie? I don't know. It's a question without an answer, because no one else could. And I know it's kind of a small role, but like, Jamie is just so good at like that kind of role, the slightly eccentric, but like, you know, she's just wonderful. Yes, okay, moving on. Nicholas Joseph Strauss Menataya, I'm pretty sure he just goes Mendick Strauss now, but fucking motorcycles, okay. But that's what the name says in the cast list, so we're gonna go with, he plays Sirius Black, and he is, I mean, all the characters in this show are just so iconic. Like, not just because they're Harry Potter characters, but because of the way Starkid has reimagined them. Iconic. Also, the homoeroticism between Remus and Sirius is something that I want to talk about more in another video, perhaps. Like, they're always like, I mean, let's be honest, the majority of the Harry Potter community ships Wolfstar. And I mean, Tonks is awesome, but as a character on her own, I prefer her than with Remus. Not that I don't ship them. I ship many contradicting ships. But like, let's be honest, in our heart of hearts, we are all Wolfstar shippers. Yes, okay. Corey Doris plays Yaxley, and Corey Doris is an underrated gift to comedy. At least that's what I wrote in my notes as I was watching this. Corey Doris is wonderful and underrated, although less so now, which I'm very happy about. I fully endorse all of this love for Corey Doris because I get it, okay? He's wonderful. He is great. And yes. And he's so funny. Where's the pizza? Did it fall through the hole? I mean, talk about iconic. This video is literally me just fangirling, but let's be honest, that's what all my Starkid reviews have been, so with like a little bit of analyzation, so I can't call it just fangirling. So it's the English major in me as well as the fangirl major in me. That's basically what these reviews are. The English major in me is like themes, character development, and then the Starkid fan in me is just like, I love them so much. And that's what this entire series is. Devin Lytle plays Cho Chang, and the inherent irony of her casting and the parody in her casting is something I want to talk about, but I feel like will be more relevant in the Harry Potter musical video I'm gonna do sometime in the future. So I'm gonna leave that for that, whatever. Ariel Goldman plays Lily Evans, Luna Lovegood, and Hedwig, and Ariel Goldman is lovely and underrated. I mean, she doesn't play a lot of like major characters, but she is great, and she's very well cast as Lily. I think she's like great as Lily. She's also very pretty, but like that's not why I like her. It may be relevant, but it's not the sole reason, because she's also a good singer and a good actor, and she's, as Hedwig, she is lovely and adorable, and Luna's character in this is fucking hilarious, and I love it, and yes, Ariel Goldman is awesome, we stan, okay? Yes. Brian Rosenthal plays Seamus Finnegan and James Potter. And in my notes, as I was watching this is what I wrote. Brian Rosenthal as Seamus is chef's kiss. And I think that encapsulates my feelings about that casting. He is great and funny and lovely. And also, in my opinion, he's really well cast as James Potter. He really is good at exuding that type of arrogance that I know we all associate with James Potter, but like not like an unlikable arrogance, even though I'm going to talk about this later. It's important. Just put a pin in that, whatever. Also, I really like Brian Rosenthal, so... Yeah, but he's also a really good singer, and I love his accent as Seamus. It's probably not accurate at all, but like, it's funny, and that's the point of these shows. Mostly, yes. Brittany Coleman plays Dean Thomas, and she is lovely and iconic and wonderful, and I love Brittany Coleman, she's great. And Dean Thomas and Seamus have this great relationship. It's not as like big in this show, but like, it's there, and we all ship them. We do. I know. In addition to Wolfstar, Damus is a ship that we all ship. Including the actors. They got engaged apparently, not the actors, but the actors say the characters got engaged. So I take that over anything J.K. Rowling has to say, because let's be honest, I don't care what J.K. Rowling has to say. Yeah, okay. Lily Marks plays Mrs. Weasley, and it's not a very big role, but I love Lily Marks, and she adds a certain eccentricity to the character of Mrs. Weasley that I love. And it's great. And she just, I don't know, I love her version of Mrs. Weasley, and it's great and awesome and lovely. Bridget Campbell plays Neville Longbottom, and Starkid's Neville has always been, I feel like I said iconic for every single one of these characters, because Starkid's reimagining of the Harry Potter characters have all been iconic, at least in my opinion. Is that the fangirl part of me speaking? Probably. But yeah, Richard Campbell's Neville is wonderful. Sango Tajima plays Lavender Brown. It's also not a very big role. Yeah, I feel like I have more to say about like Lavender and Cho and the parody and the irony in their casting, because I think it's really interesting and also fucking hilarious. So I'm gonna save that for the Harry Potter musical review video thing. Julia Albane plays Vincent Crabbe and the Candy Lady, and Julia Albane is another one of those Starkid actors that doesn't have a ton of big roles, but that I love because I stand every single person who's ever been in a Starkid show. On stage, in the crew, everybody. Just, we stand all of them. And Julia Albane is wonderful. I know she has bigger roles in like later Starkid shows, which I've already talked about, but she is great, and her Crabbe is really funny. And I love him. And Crabbe and Goyle, it's such a great duo, and not as much in this show, but definitely in Harry Potter musical, it's like, yes. And Nick Lang, last but certainly not least, Nick Lang plays Mr. Weasley, Scarfy, Sorty, Peter Pettigrew, and Mama Umbridge. The range. Every character Nick plays has this element to it, this ineffable element to it that I cannot describe because it's ineffable, therefore cannot be described with words. English major. He is a treasure as Mr. Weasley, and just as Lily Marks adds this little bit of eccentricity to Mrs. Weasley, Nick adds even more eccentricity to an already eccentric character, and I love that. He makes Mr. Weasley, who already in the books and movies is a little bit goofy, he just heightens it so much, and I love it. Peter Pettigrew, I'm going to talk more about Peter Pettigrew later because I think the way that plotline develops is awesome and funny, and I love it. Nick as Mama Umbridge is just... all of Nick Lang's roles have been quintessential Nick Lang roles the entire time. Like I said, there's this element to it. There's something he brings to these roles that is hilarious, and I love it. I mean, like, if you look at like some of the more iconic roles that he's played, like Obi-Wan in Annie, Mama Umbridge, Robin in Home Musical Batman, I mean, not only the range, but like, yes. I'm not good at describing things. Okay, let's move on to the music, shall we? The first thing on my notes was the intro music slaps, and I was like, what does that mean? What was the intro music? Actually, the intro music is just like kind of an instrumental intro to It's Not Over Yet, which slaps itself. That's not what I meant. It's Not Over Yet is a great villain song, like objectively very good. And it has some, like, in addition to being like silly, I'm gonna talk about this more later, but Star Kid shows have this really interesting balance between like silly humor, clever humor, and like emotional depth, and I love it. And It's Not Over Yet kind of has that, because there's the line, our history is nothing more than what the losers settle for, which is objectively an awesome ass fucking villain line, and I love it. But like, it's also just goofy as well, because you've got like the villains being like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? I don't understand what you're talking about. Which is like a quintessential goofy villain thing, but then also you've got like this hardcore ass fucking line in the middle too. Have I mentioned that I love Star Kid shows? Yep. And then before Harry freaking Potter, as like the scene changes into like platform 9 3/4, we have the instrumental of Going Back to Hogwarts, and that song is so incredibly nostalgia inducing. Like, I hear it and I'm just like, Hogwarts, Harry Potter, Star Kid, childhood. And then we have Harry freaking Potter, which is a banger. It slaps. One of the two. It's a jam. I'm gonna more say it slaps. I'm not entirely sure on the separation between bangers, songs that slap, and jams. So we're gonna call this one a slapper. That's not a thing. The song slaps. Yes. I spent too much time on Tumblr. Okay. And like, in addition to the song just being really good, it gives us more insight into Harry's character, which I think is awesome, because the AVPM Harry Potter is arrogant. Like, we all know that. To the point that it's almost annoying, but like not quite. I'm not sure if this was intentional. It might have been intentional. Nick and Matt Lang are freaking geniuses. But like, in this song, it shows kind of how Harry got to that point, because if you just have a Harry Potter musical, you're like, how is this kid who was raised in a really shitty household and taught not to value anything about himself or his family or his heritage, how is he suddenly so arrogant and proud of himself? And then this song really shows how, because like, as everyone's saying, like, oh, you're like the coolest dude in the entire fucking world. That's what Ron says, right? I'm paraphrasing.
You're Harry Potter! You're the coolest goddamn kid in the entire world! Everything's awesome for you, so you better get used to it!
And then there's this part where suddenly everyone else kind of moves back and it's just Harry in the center of the stage. And he says... and then he says... and then that's when he finally sings, I'm Harry freaking Potter.
I'm Harry freaking Potter! I'll do what I can if what you say I am.
So So his arrogance is him just trying to live up to this legend of himself that he has just learned about. So then by his second year in a Harry Potter musical, he has learned to kind of put on this persona of the legend Harry Potter that everyone wants him to be, kind of thing. Am I reading too much into this parody musical? Perhaps, but that's what we do here. So then we have To Have a Home, which is, this song is raw and emotions. That's Harry in this song is much more vulnerable than he is in Harry freaking Potter. At the beginning of Harry freaking Potter, he's like, holy shit, what the hell? And then he accepts this persona. And then in To Have a Home, it's him kind of turning back in on himself and being just like, home is a thing that I can have. Like, I can feel safe somewhere. And this is a new concept to him, which, first of all, is really fucking sad. Holy shit. And also, it's so quintessential to Harry's character. Like, in the books and the movies as well, which is something I really love about the Harry Potter shows, is that they're not, like, a lot of it is parody, which makes sense because they are parody musicals. But they also have a lot of the important elements of Harry Potter, and one of those things is Harry's connection to Hogwarts as his home and his found family in the Weasleys and Hermione. And To Have a Home, I think, is really, like, it's so good. Wow, Annalise, very, very verbose of you. Love it. I'm gonna talk more about the theme of home and found family and shit, but, like, this song is really typical of the Harry Potter shows in showing how important Hogwarts is to Harry. I probably talked about it in my Harry Potter senior year review because that one also has a very strong theme of home, but I think this show really emphasizes this point, and this song, To Have a Home especially, as well as Days of Summer at the end. And I think that's why this is my favorite Harry Potter show, because the themes of home and found family just, they hit me differently. And that's not how I use that phrase, but we're just, you know what I mean? You know what I mean. Okay. Hermione can't draw, Lupin can't sing. I mean, they're just like silly songs. Don't bully, okay? That's what we're taking from this. Then we have The Coolest Girl, which I love. I love all the songs in this show, guys. Yeah. Anytime I talk about a song from a Star Kid show, just assume that I love it. First of all, Bonnie's voice is amazing, and I feel like I always forget that Bonnie has a really amazing voice, because we always talk about, like, Jamie's voice is obviously amazing, and we talk about how Joey's voice has improved from, like, a Harry Potter musical now to Black Friday. I mean, Made in America, holy shit. But Bonnie's voice is so good, and it was good from the beginning, and that's shown in this song. Maybe that's me just not being super critical about voices because I can't fucking sing, but yes, okay. And as I was watching this scene, I was like, I wish that I'd found these musicals when I was younger, because I could have used this song when I was younger, which kind of made me think about how much Hermione meant to me, like, as a character when I first read the books, because, like, I was like your quintessential nerdy girl who loved to read and was kind of teased for that in grade school. And the character of Hermione, like, meant a lot to me because she was smart and nerdy and, like, not, like, objectively pretty, but she was an important part of the Golden Trio because she could help them with her, you know, nerdiness, which was, I don't know, that was really important to me. And I realized that, well, the Harry Potter trilogy is a parody trilogy, and a lot of things about Hermione are made fun of. They still managed to capture that thing about Hermione that meant so much to me, and I think meant to, like, so much to a lot of people as well. And that's why I love this song. Then we have Getting Along, which I mentioned the whole transphobia question in relation to the character of Umbridge in a Harry Potter sequel. So the elephant in the room has been addressed. Getting Along, it's a fun song. Yep. I feel uncomfortable talking about this because I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about it, so we're just gonna move on. Then there's Let the Games Begin, which is like the Quidditch song, which is a jam. It's a jam, it is a jam, and it's a very underrated song, but I love it. This song has been on my like running playlist for, I was gonna say forever, but I've only been running for like literally less than a year. I'm not an athletic person, and not liking running was like almost part of my personality for years. So anyway, but it's like such a good song. Also the choreo for this song is great, especially if you like compare like a Harry Potter musical to Harry Potter sequel. You're like, holy shit, actual choreography. Did you know James Tolbert choreoed this show? I didn't know he'd been working with Starkid for so long, so as I was watching the credits scroll by, I was like, holy shit, James Tolbert? Wow. James Tolbert is wonderful, and yes. And we have those voices, and in my notes I have written, so good, all caps, emotions. So that's basically my thoughts of that song. It is very good. Also, emotions. I really like this song, like a lot. It makes me sad. The whole like the melancholy. It's a lot. And this song and kind of the scenes surrounding it really show how good Starkid is at balancing between humor and like emotional depth, for lack of a better phrase that I can think of at this current moment in time. Because right before those voices, I forget what it is, but there's like, there's a bit happening and it's funny. And then there's those voices and you're like, fuck me, I guess. Time to cry. And then after that, it transitions back into humor with like Sirius Black. And it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Also, like Brian Rosenthal and Ariel Goldman, like I said, I love them as James and Lily Potter. Just yes. Then we have Guys Like Potter, which when the first couple times I watched the show, I was very conflicted about Guys Like Potter because I don't like Snape. Like in the books and the movies, they never managed to really fully make me sympathize with him, but that song did. It made me sympathize with Snape, and in the beginning I'm just like, what is this feeling? Sympathy for Severus Snape? Not me, not I. What are you talking about? I mean, it says something that a bunch of college kids managed to make me sympathize with Snape more than like an entire series of books and movies did, but we're not going to go into that right now. I think this song has two very interesting elements. The one is making the audience sympathetic of Snape very successfully through, I mean, obviously Snape not being as bad, or like being bad but in a more comedic way than like obviously the books and movies portrayed him as. But there's also the element of Lucius's manipulation of Snape in this song, because you know that he's the one controlling everything at this point. He's just like, remember way back then with Lily and James, and he's the one who takes his memory and puts it in the pensive. So there's this element of control and manipulation over this memory that's being seen on stage. And as it developed, in the beginning it seems like, oh, this is what happened. Like James was making fun of Snape, then Lily comes in to defend him, and James makes his like, well, if you go out with me, I'll leave him alone. And she's like, okay, fine. And then Snape calls her a mudblood, and that's basically all that happens in the books as well. And then it suddenly is different, because then suddenly Lily is attracted to James's douchebagginess, for lack of a better term there. And then you're like, wait a second, that can't be how it actually happened. And that's the point, because that's not actually how it happened, because there was definitely more time in between when Lily started accepting James, and James obviously changing. And so then the position of Lucius is super important, because he is clearly manipulating how Snape is seeing this memory to try to turn him against Harry, or at least turn him against Harry even more than he already is, kind of thing. That's what I love about this song. Also, it's really good. And also, we get to have Joe Moses sing, and he doesn't sing very often, so like, that's a plus. There's Stutter, which is an iconic song. Also, the choreo, James Tolbert, is amazing, and we stand. Yeah, Stutter's another one of those songs that's just, it's just good. Then we finish with Days of Summer, which transitions into going back to Hogwarts. And Days of Summer has this very nostalgic, melancholic thing to it. Just Like to Have a Home did, but Days of Summer is more in general. Just Like to Have a Home is kind of Harry's, like, I don't know, Hogwarts anthem? Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it talks about how important Hogwarts is to Harry, but Days of Summer takes it to a more general thing. Like, they all love Hogwarts, and in that way it's extended to the audience and making them think about Hogwarts and what it means to them, or kind of what Hogwarts symbolizes to them, you know, home, friends, family, acceptance, etc., which is so fucking awesome. You mentioned that I love this show. I love this show a lot. So before we get into the bigger points, there's specific scenes that I want to talk about that I couldn't really fit into anything. So let's call this specific scenes that I wanted to talk about but couldn't fit into any overarching themes. Okay. The scene that I really wanted to talk about was this scene.
Yeah. Whatever.
Just so you know, in the future, you don't get her. So don't even try, Weasley.
Two things, Draco. One, you may be trying to help us. But two, you're still full of shit.
Now, I don't know what it is about this scene that I love it so much. I don't know what it is. But I think what really gets me about this scene is how much more serious it is than any other interaction between Ron and Draco that we've seen or will see, I think. If memory serves, this is like the only serious scene between Ron and Draco in the entire Harry Potter trilogy. And I think that's really interesting. I mean, I think it really it builds into Draco's character development from being silly to actually being kind of cruel, but then in the end kind of accepting that he can't have Hermione, which in Harry Potter senior year kind of he goes back on. But you know. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that scene because I really like it. I don't know how to talk about it, which is why I couldn't fit it into any themes, because I was just like, but what does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know. I just really like that scene. And then there's just this scene, this line really of Snape's.
You'll pay for this. Put it on my tab. Stupefy.
And I just really like that line and I wanted to talk about it. Okay. There's a couple of bigger things that I wanted to talk about this show, because if you have not noticed yet, I really like this show. Like I mentioned a couple times before, this show has a really good balance of humor and depth, and I feel like I've already talked about this a fair bit, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Yes, I already talked about this mostly, so like, yes, the balance between humor and emotional depth, there's gotta be a better way to say that, is strong in this show. Yes, okay. Then there's the theme of home and family, acceptance, found family, that shit. And the entire Harry Potter trilogy is fucking yes. I mean, if you look at this in chronological order, Harry Potter sequel, Harry realizes that he can have a home, like it's a possibility for him, and he finds, I guess, this found family with like the Weasleys and Hermione, and his main motivation in this show is Umbridge cannot fucking take my home away from me when I've only had it for less than a year. Like, that's very much, I don't know how entirely accurate that is, but that's kind of the feeling I get from it. Like, I just got here and I'm happy here and Umbridge cannot fucking take that away from me. And that's his whole thing. And then in a Harry Potter musical, in addition to obviously being motivated by Voldemort killing his parents, etc., he's protecting his home, he's protecting his friends, his found family. And then in a Harry Potter senior year, it's his returning home that is the main plot point, because he's so disillusioned that he leaves, and then he realizes that Hogwarts is his home. But more than that, that the people at Hogwarts are his home. It's not really the place. but the feelings surrounding it, the people he's met there and everything he's learned there, like, that's why Hogwarts is so important. It's not the place, it's the feeling. This is getting very emo very quickly. Oh boy. I feel like that's really the charm of the Harry Potter series. I mean, obviously the characters and the plot line, etc. are important, but it's more the world. That's why, like, Universal Harry Potter World, whatever the fuck it's called, I don't know, I've never been, is such like a thing people want to do. And that's why, I don't know if this happened to everybody, but when I was watching Crimes of Grindelwald, which objectively, not a great movie, but like, there were things about it that I liked. And one of the things that really got me about that movie was they went back to Hogwarts. And like, maybe the plot line wasn't great, whatever, we were at Hogwarts. I was happy. I was sitting there in the theater going like, oh, we're back. It's Hogwarts. Oh my goodness. And that attraction to Harry Potter, Starkid really captures that in their shows, and I think that's really cool. And I mean, like, there are so many parts of the Harry Potter sequel that I could talk about that refer back to home. I mean, there's Dumbledore's speech before Days of Summer, where he talks about why Harry had to grow up in the Muggle world, which is really good. Alright, so there's this element that I've never really thought very much about before, and it probably has a technical name in like literary criticism, but my class has been canceled for the week, okay? Like, I'm not gonna look into, actually no, that's something I would totally do, but I didn't feel like it this time, that I'm gonna call funny foreshadowing for lack of knowing a better term. It's a joke that seems random, but that's the humor that we kind of know and expect from Starkid, so we disregard it like as simply a joke. And then it turns out to be foreshadowing the whole time. While, like, Harry Potter Musical and Me and My Dick don't really have that as much, at least not that I remember. I'm gonna be watching them again soon, so maybe I was wrong. But this show really starts that. Like, for example, the whole potty joke, like how Draco can't go to the bathroom, it seems like just like a silly throwaway Starkid type joke. But then it's foreshadowing the whole time to Draco being part house elf. I mean, there's more of that. There's the douchebag foreshadowing, which I never realized before as foreshadowing, because that whole conversation that Harry, Ron, and Hermione have about them being douchebags outside of Hogwarts, but then in Hogwarts they're like cool.
But in the Muggle world, I'm just I'm something called a douchebag. Back home, around my brothers, I'm kind of a douchebag too.
It's foreshadowing to like how James was a douchebag and the whole song Guys Like Potter.
There are so many douchebags in the world.
And the centaurs needing someone to breed with, but like all the human women they sleep with die because their dicks are so big. It seems like such a silly joke, which is the type of humor that we kind of expect from Starkid, and maybe we underestimate them in that way because a lot of these silly jokes come back because that's how they defeat Umbridge, because Firenze is just like, holy shit, this is a very strong woman, perhaps she could survive sleeping with a centaur, and then they take her away. And the Red Vines do this, but like in a slightly different way, which I will talk about in just a sec. Also, Ron and Hermione's relationship is, I mean, maybe developed well is a bit of an overstatement, but it is developed, honestly, in my opinion, better than the Harry Potter movies. Like, I will someday do a video about how the Harry Potter movies ruined Ron's character. That day is not today, but it is coming. It is coming. Ron's Spider-Man monologue is... I love it. I love it so much. And this development flows well into a Harry Potter musical, because in the beginning of a Harry Potter sequel, Ron is just like, ugh, Hermione. And then by the end, he's like, I guess we're friends now. Cool. I mean, like, you're a good person and you're smart, and like, I value you and your knowledge and stuff you contribute to our friend group. And then in a Harry Potter musical, like, obviously they make fun of her, but not as much as they do in a Harry Potter sequel, so that really flows well. Okay, the final climax of this show, defeating Pettigrew, is so quintessentially Starkid, and I love it. Like, the Red Vines, like I said, kind of like funny foreshadowing. First you're just like, we just think this Red Vines thing is like a funny bit that they were sponsored for. Do we actually know if that was paid promotion? Like, do we know that? I always assume that it was paid promotion, but do we actually know that? It probably was. Anyway, but then it turns out to be the thing that defeats Peter Pettigrew, and it's just... It's one of those, like, quintessentially Star Kid type humor moments that I love. That's what I love about Star Kid. It's random, it seems like a funny bit, but it turns out to be, like, an important element to the plotline. I would just like to say, Nick and Matt Lang are great writers, and I fully appreciate the way they write their shows, because, like, I mean, you can't make that shit up. Like, it's so good. I mean, clearly you can make that shit up because they wrote it, but, like, you know what I mean. So this show has so many elements to it that have become essential parts of Star Kid's specific brand of comedy. The funny foreshadowing is something that happens in Star Kid, like in Trail to Oregon. The whole Cornwallis joke, which is one of my favorite jokes they have ever written, is that same thing, the funny foreshadowing, because they're just like, oh yeah, haha, Grandpa fought in the war, but he thinks he fought lobsters, and Cornwallis was a lobster, and then in the end you find out that Cornwallis was a lobster and he saves them from dying. Like, what is this? And the minimal set and props has also, like, it obviously started because they were students and didn't have access to a ton of funds, but it has continued throughout their productions, and it doesn't decrease the production value in the way that we see it, because they work with it so well. Like, just think about all of their shows and how minimalist their sets and props are. Like, take Twisted, which I think has some of the highest quality costumes, or I don't know, it has really cool costumes, but the set is very minimalist. There's crates, and that's pretty much it. And yet they managed just to create a whole story that if they had had a full set, I feel like would have taken away from the actors. I mean, final climaxes being quintessentially Star Kid. Like, I mean, the Chorn ending of Firebringer, which some people didn't like, but I thought was fucking genius and wonderful. I feel like, well, a Harry Potter musical and Me and My Dick were obviously important shows for Star Kid, being their first two shows. Harry Potter sequel really establishes these important elements to Star Kid's brand of humor, and also just their brand as a production company, that I think is really interesting. Yes, okay. That was a lot. So, some final thoughts, I guess, about this show. The show leaves me with a very strong feeling of nostalgia, honestly more than any of the other Harry Potter shows, which probably has a lot to do with the song Days of Summer and how it transitions into Gotta Get Back to Hogwarts, which then of course reminds you of the first show and nostalgia. Harry Potter senior year is like a close second in like the feeling of nostalgia. I mean, you have like Voldemort's speech at the end, which like I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in my Harry Potter senior year video, but it's very clearly not just about the show, but just about Harry Potter in general. But there's something really special about a Harry Potter sequel. I don't know if it's because it was very early on in Star Kid's like history, but it just, I don't know. Whenever I finish watching this show, I have to just kind of sit there for a couple minutes and just soak it all in, I guess. I don't know. It's very nostalgia heavy, this show, and it's very emotional, but it's also really funny. So it's not like you feel emotionally drained after that. You just kind of have to sit there and think. And I don't know, that's probably just why I like this show so much, is it has that ineffable element to it that I cannot describe, but is there. And I'm sure a bunch of other people feel that too. Yes, so this is probably going to be my longest frickin' Star Kid review, but that's okay. Yes, thank you for watching. I will be posting more regularly because I have an entire week of no classes, so yes. Thank you for watching. I will see y'all later. Bye!